What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and there's a lot to talk about in this video, from Games Workshop actively suing a 3D model hobbyist, Black Myth Wukong's devs getting vandalized by pro-feminist activists, and a game developer venting on Reddit claiming that they hate all of you because you won't accept the industry's politics and more. So let's get this started. To begin, the Warhammer lawsuit story, cause this is crazy and not enough people know about it. So a user who goes by ENDYMION has been handed a lawsuit by Games Workshop and has effectively put this hobbyist into severe debt overnight. So what happened? Well, I first heard of this due to the Archcast's tweet, which stated that ENDYMION was making 3D models from an era of the franchise that Games Workshop doesn't actively create new models for these days. I was able to dig up more information in regards to this so that we can fully understand what exactly is going on here. ENDYMION had 12 files of copyright infringement placed against him by Games Workshop sometime around September 2023, according to this report that I'm reading. According to this article, Games Workshop utilizing the CCB or Copyright Claims Board against a single user like this is often unheard of, and the lengths that they've went to in order to submerge ENDYMION in legal fees is considered abnormal even for a corporation of this size. So ENDYMION has his full legal name stated in the article, which I won't read out, but he was served 12 counts of copyright infringement by Games Workshop for ripping files straight out of the Total Warhammer video game series. Apparently, he was taking these files and then putting them behind a Patreon of around $8 a month to allow users to access these 3D printed models, so they could use them to print via 3D printing for their own use. According to this, ENDYMION also added additional supports in order to make the 3D printing process easier for other hobbyists. As the article states, according to Games Workshop, the original files on Cult 3D are not suitable for printing due to the lack of support and need to be edited to function. Games Workshop also detailed that ENDYMION had an Etsy account where he would personally print and sell 3D printed figurines for customers around the $65 mark, which Games Workshop claims was damaging their own brand because similar works from their own online stores would range in the $100 to hundreds of dollars for something of equal quality. So obviously ENDYMION was undercutting Games Workshop and giving people what they wanted for a fraction of the price. Originally, Games Workshop filed a DMCA or Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown towards ENDYMION, but he countered it by saying that the works in question that Games Workshop was trying to get him for were already 3D models that were available via cult3d.com. I went over to that website to see what it was all about, and it's pretty much a hub for 3D printed files and models from all sorts of franchises and even original designs. Stuff like Warhammer and even Pokemon is available on there as well. I decided to look more into the Warhammer side of the site, and yeah, there's full model files for specific units and even life-size weapons as well. It's also a site that states that it has over 1.6 billion designs readily available to be downloaded for free. So naturally, I could see why companies like Games Workshop would be so against it existing in the first place. But anyways, ENDYMION stated that the designs he had available via Patreon were not stolen, but were actually free designs readily given by Games Workshop in the past. And the only actual difference is that he added to these models were the supports that he included for ease of use. Therefore, in ENDYMION's defense, he claimed what was being DMCA'd by Games Workshop here was not copyright infringement. And therefore, what he was doing is totally legal and not punishable by law. However, Games Workshop countered by saying even though the designs were technically free and available, that he illegally downloaded and uploaded those designs from one source to cult3d.com illegally without permission. They also sent a cease and desist against ENDYMION, but allegedly he ignored it because, again, what they were claiming against was ENDYMION using free designs but was just making them easier to be found and incorporated with his help. Regardless of all of this, Games Workshop above all else decided to bring the hammer down on ENDYMION and went for the maximum charge, which is $30,000 per case that they filed. I'm pretty sure that $30K is in American dollars since they went through the CCB, but I could be wrong. Regardless, it's a lot of money. Games Workshop also claimed in their report that E-Man was making upwards of $5,788 per month via Patreon in order to make these designs work for hobbyists of Warhammer. But what's really interesting is the more I looked into this, that regardless if Games Workshop were to win this case, they can't issue an injunction, which via the CCB means even if Games Workshop successfully destroys E-Man with legal fees, they cannot, in a manner of speaking, actually stop this guy from doing this again in the future. Apparently, using the CCB to issue legal claims is a risky process and can result in the person issuing the claims not getting what they want in the end anyway. So clearly, Games Workshop didn't want to invest too much on their end to stop E-Man in case the claims were thrown out. According to this report, Games Workshop has filed around 12 claims against E-Man, which involves a total of 14 different designs available via his Patreon. So here's the big roundhouse kick to E-Man. If Games Workshop got what they wanted, he will owe them around $360,000 in damages for uploading free 3D designs behind a Patreon paywall. As the report states, the issue is that while the CCB does have a $30,000 damages cap per claim, the CCB also has a damages cap that is based on each work that is infringed. That cap is only $15,000. Since 10 out of the 12 cases only involve one work, the total damages that could be up for grabs is $210,000. So E-Man would still be cooked, because I mean $210K is still a lot of money, but it's better than $360,000, I guess. Yeah, none of this is good, fellas, but it keeps going. Apparently, because of the massive claim set here by Games Workshop, it would be a very unique case for the CCB when it comes to how much each claim is worth. According to the report, the CCB might just combine all the claims into one single claim, meaning that E-Man would need to pay around $30,000 American for the alleged misuse of these designs that he placed behind a paywall. But the more claims that Games Workshop has against E-Man, the better their claims will be taken in a legal sense when placed against him, and it's obviously not looking good for him. However, there has been updates, and it's been confirmed that Games Workshop has indeed successfully filed their claim of copyright infringement against E-Man G. He has since launched a GoFundMe solely in order to pay these outrageous legal fees to get Games Workshop off of his back. As of the making of this video, he's at $6,200 of the $45,000 he needs to satisfy Games Workshop. Here's what he said via GoFundMe, and I quote, "Greetings everyone, my name is Iman Gassemi, but I am more widely known as E-Man G. I design models for 3D printing and publish them via my page on Cults 3D. For many years, I've been doing my work gratis. I also looked forward to new prints and showcases of painted models by the many talented individuals across the 3D printing scene. Creating scale models for printing was not only my passion, but my dream job. On October 24, 2023, I was personally served with a number of copyright infringement complaints. Due to the lengthy proceedings, I have incurred significant legal fees and related costs that I am currently trying to pay off. Unfortunately, negotiations have taken much longer than expected, and my legal fees and settlement costs are substantial. As I am currently unemployed and do not have a viable source of income, I cannot afford to pay these fees myself, and so I'm kindly asking for donations to help me make these remaining payments. Every donation, no matter how small, will help in this time of struggle. Your support is greatly appreciated. Any and all remaining funds after my legal bills are paid at the end of this campaign will be donated to charity," end quote. So as you can see, Games Workshop is effectively trying to silence and destroy the 3D printing hobbyists that are eating into their bottom lines. And it is not only immoral, but very scummy of them to do so. I will also put E-Man's GoFundMe page in the description below in case you want to look at it yourself and possibly donate if you are able to. But the bottom line here is that what Games Workshop is doing to this hobbyist is unjust, because not only are the designs free to begin with, but E-Man is simply adding supports to the models so people can more easily have them stand up in real life. What Games Workshop is doing here is pretty much making an example out of this man in order to make other users think twice before selling or creating their own models. But the other big reason as to why this is so frowned upon by Games Workshop is that it could create an alternative to their brand over time. And why would an alternative be created to begin with, you may be asking, partly due to the fact that many of these figurines are expensive as hell, and they are clearly priced to gouge eager customers with ridiculously high prices, but it's more than that too. Ever since the female Adeptus Custodes story happened, people who were massive Warhammer fans have left the hobby from cancelling their Warhammer Plus subscriptions and more. But they obviously still love the IP, but they likely feel that it is morally unjust to give money to a company that is so easily willing to change lore or disrespect customers on a whim like this. So naturally, people who want to enjoy Warhammer but don't want to fund ESG or identity politics like turning Custodes into women when they never were, will want to continue painting and making their own figurines. So basically, since the whole Custodes thing happened, the 3D printing community side of Warhammer has been justly exploding in popularity, and I mean, can you really blame them? Even if Games Workshop never did the lore changes, the fact still remains that many of these 3D printed models are expensive as hell to begin with. With the way the economy is right now, people are struggling, and I don't think Games Workshop is in a position to be putting their boots on people's necks while they charge these insane prices, which are very clearly being made readily available for a fraction of the price by other people. Basically, it's not only about Games Workshop protecting their IP, they effectively want to squash the 3D printing side of the hobby altogether so that there are no alternatives to their merchandise. But if I know anything about fans of any hobby or IP, the more you prod them and push against their wants, the more they're gonna do it. It's very likely that Games Workshop's slamming of E-Man will just embolden people to keep doing it, and it will just make more people become disgusted that they've gone to such lengths to destroy a single man who just wants to help people. It's not like Games Workshop is losing much anyway, since it seems like every quarter they keep announcing record-breaking profits anyways. So it's simply that they want to make even more on top of the profit that they're already making. And if it means that a few hobbyists get buried in fees for the rest of their lives, it's a small price to pay in Games Workshop's eyes to secure their IP in the future. And I'm sure Games Workshop knows once their Warhammer show is made, if it even happens at this point with Henry Cavill, they know that the hobby will just explode in popularity even further, which will obviously bring many people rushing to buy Warhammer stuff. But if people like E-Man are there to offer stuff for a fraction of the price, that is an attack against them, and therefore hobbyists must be destroyed. It's not a good look, I'll tell you that, but that's what's happening right now. Is Games Workshop justified in their legal crushing of E-Man, or are they overstepping their power by targeting a man sharing free designs? You tell me in the comments. And remember again that his GoFundMe is in the description below if you want to help, but the injustices don't stop there. So now let's move on to Black Myth Wukong for this shorter but still worrying story. To quickly get you up to speed, websites like IGN, Eurogamer, and more have been targeting Black Myth Wukong's devs for allegedly being misogynistic and claiming that the devs hate women and go out of their way to attack them. Of course, these claims don't really have much evidence beyond some devs making a crude joke here or there, but again, this is a Chinese developer. It's a completely different culture. It hasn't stopped IGN from slandering Black Myth Wukong's devs in literally every article they write about them since, though. Now it seems that their offices have been vandalized. They'll have to place a black bar over the graffiti because apparently what's written on the walls here, it includes racial slurs towards Game Science's devs, but this all comes from Grums, of course. So if you want to see the original unfiltered photos, please go to his Twitter page to see it. Regardless, Game Science has been clearly vandalized by pro-feminist activists in China. It's a problem because in China, things like public defacing of property is obviously not tolerated at all. And according to Grums and what others are saying, there's one Chinese Twitter user who is allegedly claiming that they are responsible for all of this. I cannot confirm this, by the way, so please don't harass them or anything until we have more information. If I take what they said in this thread and then put it through a translator, which obviously won't give me the exact statements, of course, but this could be completely wrong, and if it is, let me know please, and anyone who can actually read what's written here, please comment below to inform us in case I get this wrong. However, this is what I could get from what was said here. Let's just say it straight, I will go to Nanshan District in Shenzhen once again in the next month. If this traveler and his dog have the guts, call the police and ask them to stay in a dark corner because I am really above board. Obviously, this isn't translated 100%, but I'm assuming the gist here is that this user is claiming responsibility for what is happening. And they are pretty much confirming that they will again go to where Game Science's headquarters is, and then they will deface their property again next month, which is also around the time the game finally launches as well too. Now there's all kinds of conspiracy theories in the comments of people claiming maybe someone from the West paid a Chinese activist to do this in order to scare Game Science into apologizing about their alleged opinions of women. But I think if anything, all this will do is get some young, woke, brainwashed Chinese user jailed over this, and Game Science will just double down on being super based instead. I sincerely doubt that the spray painting of a single person is enough to spook an entire developer into just bending the knee. And if I have any advice for Game Science, it's to never apologize ever, no matter what. Because let's say that this vandalizing of their property makes them apologize, all you're going to do is embolden these activists into believing that if they continue down this path that they can get the response they want from others that they hate in the future too. The more you encourage these individuals, the worse things will get, so hopefully it's a one and done sort of scenario, because I sincerely doubt that Game Science as a studio is even remotely worried about this. I mean, their game is like the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam right now. And they apparently already have over 1 million pre-orders. Like, for a small dev studio like this, the bag is already secured prior to launch for them. And we all know that if they reject woke insanity and feminists, that the support that they will get from the West is going to be nuclear, but in a good way. As for the Chinese feminist activists, mission failed successfully, I guess, because all they're going to end up doing is making people more sympathetic to Game Science and just want to support them even more. But mark my words, this sexist angle will be brought up in reviews, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up affecting the Metacritic score somehow too. But are we surprised that feminists are resorting to defacing public property? Not really. These people are pathetic to begin with. Finally, let's end with a game developer who vented recently on Reddit about how much they hate current day gamers. From that Park Place, anonymous game developer admits I kinda hate gamers, calls Asmongold viewers bigots. The anonymous dev was on the game dev subreddit where they just decided to start complaining about the player bases out there for being unaccepting of woke identity politics. They said via Reddit, and I quote, "I'm a professional game designer and I'm worried that I'm starting to hate gamers. Watching the gaming events on YouTube last month with a chat on was an extremely disheartening experience. Every time a character that wasn't a cishet white man appeared on screen, the chats would fill with messages calling the game woke or complaining about DEI. Every game that wasn't a shooter or a hyper-casual competitive online game garnered Zs and boring comments. And then I checked Twitter and it's just people complaining that the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is not yellow enough. People telling me there are right ways and wrong ways to beat Elden Ring, and people hating on the new Dragon Age because the trailer doesn't match the tone that they had imagined for it. I've seen people implying that the main character in the Fable trailers is ugly because it's a self-insert of some random level designer working at Playground when they are not deemed effable enough. I don't know, it's just the internet magnifying negative voices, I guess, doing what it does best, but it's making me real tired of gamers," end quote. This anonymous dev who goes by Likely Sprite on Reddit is clearly a woke activist who is drowning in the Kool-Aid on a daily basis. Another user named Mega Hashes said it how it is. Anyone who unironically uses cishet to complain about customers is not developing a game that will be commercially successful. To which Likely Sprite said, "Thanks for proving my point, cishet gamer. By the way, in case you're not up to date on woke gobbledygook, cishet means cis heteronormative. As in a straight person. Yes, that's now a term you know, I guess. You're welcome, or apologies, because yeah, I agree, it's stupid, but anyways. This Likely Sprite person obviously got backlash and then went on the defensive stating, "I made this post event, people are free to comment whatever they want. My work is to tweak numbers on an Excel sheet and then implement and fine-tune the changes in the game engine. I have zero use for gamers' thoughts on race and gender." This anonymous dev also confirms after people kept asking why are you referring to people as cishet, and yeah, it turns out this dev is, unsurprisingly, trans themselves, as they confirm right here in the subreddit. The dev also states later on that Asmongold fans are bigots and awful too, which is very cool, nice. This is just the mask falling off of yet another woke game developer likely working on something that won't sell because it's full of identity politics. And like many other devs that are echoing this kind of rhetoric, game developers are mad that players are not accepting their political messages in games anymore. As I stated in my previous video, even Phil Spencer, who's the head of Xbox, confirmed that the industry is not growing this year and that none of this surprises me at all. The layoffs across the board are happening because players are not accepting the slop that is being made in the West anymore. And the more they continue to push it, the more people will reject it, which will just lead to more failures, layoffs, and angry devs like this one venting anonymously on places like Reddit. You can spray paint game offices all you want, put your boots on the necks of hobbyists, or call us bigots. The end result is that the players will always come out on top. These idiots don't seem to realize that there are tons of games in people's backlogs already. They don't need to play anything new for a long time, and ultimately these ideas and concepts will only continue to exist if they are commercially successful. So all players need to do is reject it, not buy it, and then watch as these woke weirdos squirm and scream until they too are laid off and told to kick rocks. And dear likely sprite, if you want to keep your job, maybe stop calling your customer base hateful cishet bigots for a start. Whether you want to admit it or not, the majority of the world will always be cishet, or whatever buzzwords you want to use. Because without cishet people, guess what? The world can't continue. So maybe start making games that cishet people want to play, or you'll likely lose your job next. Or I guess you could vent again in a year's time when your game fails and you get laid off because you and your moron dev friends thought making another woke DEI-infested agenda game was a good idea in the first place. Keep doing what you're doing, likely sprite, because I'll be there to wave as your ship sinks with all of the others. As you can see, companies and activists are trying to scare, shame, and humiliate you into bending the knee, and it is your mission, dear viewer, to do everything in your power to stand your ground, look them dead in the eyes, and say never. Just keep pushing, keep resisting, and never apologize for being who you are. These people can hate us all they want, we'll be here long after their jobs dissolve and their games fail. I thank you for watching, subscribe, share, and like the video, and thanks to my patrons as well. Remember to check ENDYMION's GoFundMe if you are able to help, and thank you for being here. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.